Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from the beautiful city of Berlin is Maximilian Dazer. Hi, Max. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. So Max's goal is to drive change from the bottom. For every team, he creates a vision and tries to get them on board to pursue the change together. Max wants to free people from the micromanagement-hell version of Scrum. And I'm sure we'll dive into that as we go through the questions this week here on the podcast. So Max, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
Yeah. So right now I'm working as a Scrum Master for more about 4 years, I guess. And I come not really from the software realm. I studied industrial engineering. And so my background was more this waterfall approach. So you design something, then you implement it, test it. And
so I guess it's not only software that learns waterfall in college, right?
Yeah, like I said, I come from electrical, mechanical engineering, and that's what we learned. We also had a lesson about Kanban, but there we were told like Kanban is for manufacturing. Like that's what the car manufacturers do. So this was my knowledge when I got out of university, and I moved to Berlin and worked for some couple of startups as an intern, later as a product manager, and everyone was throwing these terms around like Agile software. Like how can we be agile? We're doing Scrum. And at first I didn't know anything about that. And I'm a curious person, so I looked it up. And what I immediately recognized when I read, for example, the Scrum Guide and tried to understand what Scrum is that we're not doing Scrum. Like what Scrum meant for most of these startups is we're using Jira and we created a sprint board and we're having like a daily. And then I just asked like questions like, why don't we have a sprint review? It seems kind of good to talk to customers and showing them our progress. But yeah, so this was where my journey a little bit started. And then I had my first position as a product manager at this time for a startup. And there the situation was, how to say, tricky. So we released probably every 3 to 6 months. We didn't never speak to customers, didn't get the feedback. And at this time, we were a really early stage. So no business model. We didn't know if we have like market fit, if we are solving the right problem. And in between, I had the task to create a vision and to create a roadmap and all of these product management stuff. And I figured that I don't know the answers. Like the complexity is just too high. And I talked with my two teams. So we were one mobile team and one classical software service team, and just asked them, like, do we want to try it? Scrum. I tried it with some startups, but maybe we can just try it and try to release every 2 weeks and show progress to customers and even our stakeholders, what at this time were the founders. And the team, they just said, yeah, let's try this. And at first it didn't work. So we weren't able to release every 2 weeks, which was kind of expected, because it took us 3 months before. So we worked on that. Like the first couple of sprints were just cleaning up all the technical debt that was just there from the start and being able to release. So a lot of continuous integration, continuous deployment. And after this was set up, we could then just do experiments, talk with, had some customers in the sprint review, showing them our progress. And we found out pretty quick that what we're trying to do doesn't solve any problem for our customers. So we learned that probably in about 2 months or so. And then we had to make a decision. Should we go try something else? Do we still stick to the strategy? And yes, this was my start as being a Scrum Master, product owner. And from there, I just went to different companies.
And it's very interesting, the story that you told us, because it's, you had experienced the non-Scrum, as you described it, right? The Scrum that wasn't really Scrum before. And then you went into this team and you tried to, just suggest and they took it. And then you actually got a lot done, right? Like, if you had a release of 3 to 6 months before, and in less than 2 months, you found out that you were solving the wrong problem, that's a big win, right? The result of that, the consequence of that might not be a big win, but the fact that you got there so fast, you saved a lot of time. So a great story. You did put together the product owner / product manager and Scrum Master position, which can sometimes work and sometimes doesn't work. So maybe you have a story to tell us about that. I don't know. But the next question I have for you is for you to share with us a story of failure. I mean, today's Monday, so Fail Monday, as we call it here on the podcast. And we want to explore one of those stories where you had a big moment of learning. So Max, tell us that story.
I guess after the startup, I moved to a different company to work as a real Scrum Master because, as I said, I wasn't really satisfied with being the product owner and Scrum Master. So just wearing these two hats. And there I learned that I didn't understand Scrum in the way I did, because it's something different to be in a startup and just there are no processes. You can just build everything from scratch. And there, like doing Scrum was kind of easy. Everyone just wanted to do that, and it seems natural to us.
Because it was kind of a little bit of structure, right? It helped people.
Yeah. But in there, this company was like, I guess, 20 years old. So like not super old, but they had processes, everything in there. 100 people worked there. And when I was there as a Scrum Master, I struggled a little bit because, as I said, I didn't come from the software realm. I read about servant leadership, and I didn't really know what my place in this team is because I wasn't the product owner anymore. So just full-time Scrum Master, and how to actually help them to get better.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Like you said, I didn't really know what my place was in this team. So you were starting as a Scrum Master, full-time Scrum Master, as you said, for the first time. What was hard to figure out? Like what made it hard to figure out what your role was?
I guess one of the first things was like, what do I do actually the whole day? Because as I said, like, from this engineering phases, so I worked for some car manufacturers as an intern, and there you have like this strong Taylorism. So it's kind of expected that you do just be busy. It doesn't matter what you achieve, but just be busy and do something. And when I worked there as a Scrum Master, there were times where I didn't have to do anything, and I just didn't know what to do, and I felt like I do something wrong, or like what should I plan something? Should I help someone? And I just was lost a little bit there. And I was also a little bit, because of that, because I didn't know what to do, I took like Scrum kind of dogmatic. So right now I'm more about, we are doing Scrum to achieve something, to get value to our customers faster and better, because the goal is not to do perfect Scrum. But when I started this was more or less the goal. So I couldn't tell the why. So why are we having a sprint planning? Why is the sprint review important? And I just couldn't explain it really good. And so I kind of lost the team a little bit, because as said, as you said in the introduction, I always try to paint a vision right now. So this is how it could be, how we could work together. We could enjoy ourselves and building great products. And then I have like companions that want to change with me. But if I just say we need to sprint review because it's in this Scrum guide, then you lose the people and they don't care about the change. And I guess this was one of the hardest learnings for me, because I couldn't reach a team anymore. And then I was also fired because of that. And I can't understand it right now, because I didn't do a good job there. And it was a lot of learning that I had to do to improve.
Absolutely. And if I look at that story, of course, it had this catastrophic type of outcome, right? You being fired. But if I look at this story, I think there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom here for our Scrum Master listeners out there. So one was the expectation of always being busy. And that gives me two thoughts, and I'd like to hear your point of view on this. So the first thought is that when we come into the team, we bring our own cultural model, right? In yours, it was Taylor, right? The Taylorism, as you describe it. So being busy all the time, and productivity being more movement, right? If you're moving, you're busy, you're being productive. If you're not moving, you're not busy, you're not being productive. And then the other aspect is how we ourselves project all of that into the organization that we're in, right? Like we when we come in, we have some ideas in mind, and then when we get to the organization, we say, aha, these things should work for you. this way, right? Like what you said, that now these days you do it the other way around. You try to set a vision with the team and then work together with the team to reach that vision. But at that time, you brought your own cultural baggage, we could call it, and kind of project it into the team and into the organization. Is that how you saw it? How you see it now, looking back? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess that's actually true. And from the second thing you described, I also suffer a little bit, even today, that you always have in your head how good teams should work together. And when you come to a new team, like every team's different. You just need to meet them where they are right now. And that's, I can't just say it again, painting the vision and just asking the team, like, how do you want to work together? What do you want to achieve? And then collaborating on that is just better than just being, because otherwise you're just a manager that's called, and I could just call myself a Scrum Master, but I'm managing the team to work like how I want them to be. And this will never be sustainable, because if I'm gone, they either stop doing that or they will just never collaborate with me. So this is crucial.
Or you get fired, like in that story.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, it is not fun to get fired. I'm not saying that. And obviously, it can be quite a tragic point in somebody's life to get fired. But I think that Max's story is very inspiring because, as you said, you had to learn a lot from that story. And I think that we as Scrum Masters, we have to understand that when we fail, and we do, because we try things, and the only way not to fail is to stop doing anything, right? But when we fail, we have this opportunity to go back and reflect. In those days, did you have a friend, a coach, a mentor that you went to kind of review and reflect on these things? Or how did you actually do that reflection?
I guess at first I was a little bit embarrassed about this because, as you said, like not everyone has this kind of embracing failure. So it's still from a feeling of being embarrassed to getting fired. But I talked with a lot of friends. I also was in this Serious Scrum community and had a chance to talk with people there and just figured out what did I do wrong, like being this dogmatic guy. And I just realized I had to do a lot of learning to really understand Scrum and even like all the different things. So at first, to give you one example, when people, like one question I always get is about story points and estimations. Like literally every team asked me this. And at first, I didn't have any experience. I just said, yeah, let's use story points, it's complexity. And no one got this. And I was just dogmatic, let's just use this, everyone does this. And we also have this Jira report there. And they tried even to do fancy velocity calculations. And then I just realized, at first I realized this doesn't add up. You can't do prediction with that. So I just used more like from Kanban, extreme programming, like all these different frameworks and tried to pick the best out of it and even teach these kind of frameworks to the team, let them pick it. So my team's right now doing a lot of different things. We use work in progress limits from Kanban. We just use cycle time as our main metric. And this improves it so much. So it's so much better to have this knowledge from different things, and it helped me grow so much better. And yeah, like Serious Scrum, other communities are like a good step to increase this knowledge and getting better, getting good feedback on how to improve, and just spotting these anti-patterns that you might be doing and get rid of.
Absolutely. A great story. Thank you for sharing that, Max.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.